My name is Eleanor Whitman, and sometimes I wonder if that name means more to other people than it ever did to me. Whitman, yes. That Whitman, the one you see on the glass tower downtown. The one that sponsors the city's annual charity gala. The one that's whispered in boardrooms and splashed across Forbes. But if you asked anyone at those family parties, or even at the office, they'd probably tell you I'm the quiet one. The second daughter. The one who learned to blend into the background, to keep her voice measured, and her ambitions neatly folded away. I'm 34 years old, and I work as a senior analyst at Whitman Capital, the family firm I like numbers, because they don't lie, don't play favorites, don't care about who's oldest or who's loudest. But in my family, numbers are never enough. My father, Charles Whitman, built the company from a single floor in a crumbling brick building to a $5 billion empire. He's the kind of man who fills a room with his presence, who expects excellence and rarely says thank you. My mother, Evelyn, is all grace and social charm, the perfect hostess, always reminding me to smile more, to let people see the real you. I'm not sure she ever realized how hard it is to be seen when you're standing next to someone like my sister. Vivian is 3 years older, and in the Whitman family that means everything. She's the golden child, the one who won the debate trophies and the Ivy League scholarships, the one Dad called his true heir since we were kids. At work, she's the face of the firm, confident, magnetic, the kind of person who remembers everyone's name and makes them feel like they matter. I've watched her charm clients out of $100 million deals over a single dinner. Sometimes I think she was born knowing how to win. Me, I've always been the one who stays late, who runs the numbers twice, who makes sure the projections are airtight before anyone else sees them. I'm the one who remembers to send flowers to the partners' wives and who covers for other people's mistakes. I'm the one who gets overlooked at meetings, whose ideas get repeated by someone else, usually Vivian, and suddenly everyone pays attention. I don't think anyone means to ignore me. It's just that I make it easy. Growing up, it was always Vivian's name on the honor roll, Vivian's photo in Dad's office, Vivian's stories at the dinner table. I learned early that my victories, my perfect SAT score, my first place science fair project, the time I saved the firm, $20 million by catching a risk nobody else saw, were just footnotes in the family narrative. You're so reliable. Dad would say, Vivian's got the vision, but you keep us steady. I knew it was meant as a compliment, but it always sounded like a consolation prize. Sometimes late at night, I'd lie awake in my apartment, a sleek modern place I bought myself after my first big bonus, a fact nobody in my family ever mentioned, and wonder if I'd ever be more than the backup plan. I have friends, sure, but most of them are colleagues, people who see me as the dependable one, the fixer, the person you call when you need a spreadsheet untangled or a crisis managed. I've dated, but it's hard to let someone in when you're not even sure who you are outside of being Vivian's sister or Charles's daughter. There's a kind of pressure in being part of a family like mine, the expectation that you'll not only succeed, but do it with style, with confidence, with the kind of effortless grace that makes people want to follow you. Sometimes I feel like I'm standing in a spotlight that was never meant for me, squinting into the glare, waiting for someone to notice I'm there. Other times I think maybe I'm the one who chose the shadows, that it's safer to be overlooked than to risk failing in front of everyone who's watching. But lately I've started to wonder if I'm tired of being invisible. If maybe it's time to step into the light, even if it means stumbling at first. Because the truth is, I have ideas. Big ones, risky ones, the kind that could change everything for Whitman Capital. And for once, I want the credit. I want to be seen. You never forget the moment your world tilts off its axis. For me, it was a Monday in March, the kind of day that starts out ordinary coffee emails, the hum of the city outside my window, and ends with everything you thought you knew about loyalty, family, and fairness burning to ash. Let me take you back. For 6 months, I'd been living and breathing a single idea. I'd built an investment model, a quant algorithm so precise and adaptive that it could shift $200 million in assets. And if it worked, boost our annual returns by 4%. 4%. In the world of high finance, that's not just a number, it's a seismic shift, the kind of thing that gets you written up in the Wall Street Journal, or at the very least earns you a seat at the table. I'd coded every line myself, tested it through sleepless nights, and even put $50,000 of my own bonus on the line to prove it worked. That money was everything I'd saved over 3 years, my safety net, my someday fund. But I believed in what I'd built. I believed it could change everything. I'd been waiting for this board meeting for weeks. I had my slides ready, my projections airtight, my risk analysis bulletproof. I'd even practiced my opening lines in the mirror, telling myself that this time they'd have to see me. This time I'd be more than just the reliable one. But when I walked into the boardroom, something felt off. Dad was at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. The partners were all there, and so was Vivian sitting with her back straight, her eyes bright. I caught her glance and she smiled. But there was something in it I couldn't place, something sharp, almost hungry. Dad called the meeting to order. "We have something special today," he said, his voice booming. "Vivian has developed a new quantitative model that could redefine our asset strategy." My heart stuttered. I looked at Vivian. She stood up, clicked the remote, and my slides flashed onto the screen. She walked the room through my projections, my risk analysis, my code. She spoke about the $50,000 of personal investment as if it had been hers, as if she'd stayed up those nights, as if she'd risked everything. The partners nodded, impressed. Dad beamed with pride. Not once did she look at me. I wanted to speak. I wanted to stand up and shout, "That's my work. That's my risk." But my voice caught in my throat. I felt like I was underwater, watching my life happen to someone else. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Dad stood and put his hand on Vivian's shoulder. "This is leadership," he said. "Vivian will head our new quantitative division. She'll receive a $2 million bonus and a seat on the executive committee." The partners clapped harder. My name wasn't mentioned. Not once. After the meeting, I sat at my desk, numb. I opened my bank app. The $50,000 was gone, transferred to a project fund under Vivian's name. I checked the project files. My name had been scrubbed from every document. Every line of code. I was erased. That night, my phone buzzed. A text from Vivian. "Sorry, Elle. It's just business. You'll understand one day." I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. Just business. Is that what family is? Is that what all those years of covering for her, of sharing secrets and childhood dreams boiled down to? I thought about the times I'd let her take the last piece of cake, the last word in an argument, the last bit of credit in a meeting. I thought about the $50,000, my future, my trust, my belief in something bigger than myself, gone with a swipe and a smile. I lay awake that night replaying every moment. The applause, the pride in Dad's eyes, the way Vivian didn't even flinch. I thought about calling her, about calling Dad, about standing up for myself. But the words felt heavy like stones in my mouth. In that moment, I realized something. Sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who teach you what betrayal really means. And sometimes the only way to survive is to let the fire burn away everything you thought you needed until all that's left is the truth. That was the night I stopped being invisible. Even if nobody else saw it yet, I did. And that changed everything. You know that feeling when you're standing in a crowded room, but it's like you've vanished into thin air. That's what the days after the boardroom betrayal felt like for me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just disappeared. It was as if my body kept moving through the world, but my spirit was somewhere else, hovering above, watching it all play out like a silent movie. I drifted through meetings, barely hearing the words. I watched my colleagues glance at me, then quickly look away. I could feel the weight of their pity, or maybe it was embarrassment. No one asked if I was okay. No one wanted to get involved. I became a ghost in my own story, haunting the halls of Whitman Capital, invisible even to the people who used to depend on me for everything from risk analysis to remembering birthdays. My phone buzzed with calls from Mom. She left voicemails, her voice soft and worried, asking if I was coming to Sunday brunch, if I needed anything. If I was mad at her, I couldn't bring myself to answer. I skipped family brunch for the first time in years. I imagined them all at the table, Dad proud and booming as ever, Vivian basking in her new role, Mom trying to smooth things over with too many pancakes and not enough honesty. I wondered if they even noticed the empty chair. At home, my apartment felt colder than usual. I paced the hardwood floors, the city lights flickering through my window like distant stars. I thought about the $200 million in play, the $2 million bonus, the years I'd spent proving myself. I thought about all the nights I'd spent hunched over my laptop, the endless cups of coffee, the spreadsheets that blurred into one another. I wondered if any of it had ever really mattered. I'll admit it, I thought about quitting. I drafted a resignation letter, my fingers trembling as I typed out the words I imagined walking into Dad's office, dropping the letter on his desk, and watching his face as he realized what he'd lost. But then I thought about what I'd really be walking away from. Not just a job, not just a company, but the one place where I'd ever tried to matter. I deleted the letter. The anger came in waves. It was sharp and hot, a wildfire burning through the numbness. I replayed the boardroom scene over and over in my mind. Vivian's perfect smile, Dad's pride, the way my colleagues avoided my eyes. I remembered every detail, the way Vivian's voice didn't shake the way she claimed my work as her own, the way Dad never once looked at me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. But instead, I just stood in front of my bathroom mirror late at night and whispered, "Why am I always the one left behind?" I stopped answering Vivian's texts. She sent a few. At first, "Are you okay? Can we talk?" But I ignored them. I froze her out the way she'd frozen me out of my own life. I needed space. I needed to breathe. But I didn't just retreat. Something inside me hardened. I started documenting everything. Every email, every code, commit every old notebook filled with scribbled ideas and late-night calculations. I became meticulous, almost obsessive. I wanted a record, a trail of breadcrumbs leading back to the truth. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it, but it felt like taking back a little piece of control. There were moments when the grief hit me so hard I could barely breathe. I'd sit on my couch, knees pulled to my chest, and let the silence swallow me. I grieved for the trust I'd lost, for the years I'd spent believing that hard work and loyalty would be enough. I grieved for the little girl who used to believe her family would always have her back. But there were other moments too. Moments when I felt a strange sense of clarity, like the fog was lifting. I started to see the patterns, how often I'd let myself be overlooked, how easily I'd given away my ideas, my credit, my power. I started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, this was my chance to rewrite the story. I went back through old emails, piecing together the timeline I printed out, code commits, highlighting my initials, my timestamps. I found a notebook from 6 months earlier, the first place I'd sketched out the algorithm that would change everything. I tucked it away in a drawer, a secret weapon I wasn't ready to use yet. I stopped trying to please everyone. I stopped saying yes when I wanted to say no. I started showing up late to meetings on purpose, just to see if anyone would notice. Sometimes they did. Sometimes they didn't. Either way, it felt like a small rebellion. I realized something else too. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for someone else to save me. I wasn't waiting for Dad's approval, or Vivian's apology, or Mom's gentle reassurance. I was standing on my own, shaky but determined. That's the thing about betrayal. It can break you, or it can wake you up. For me, it did both. I was still hurting, still angry, still lost. But I was also awake, and I was done being invisible. Maybe that's what it means to grow up. To see the people you love for who they really are, and to decide who you're going to be in spite of it. Maybe it's about drawing a line in the sand, even if you're the only one who can see it. I didn't know what would happen next. I just knew I wasn't going to let anyone erase me again. Not my sister, not my father, not anyone. 3 months. That's how long it took for the universe to flip the script. 3 months of sleepless nights of biting my tongue, in meetings of watching Vivian's name on the door of her new corner office, while I sat in my cubicle stewing in silence. But here's the thing about karma, it doesn't knock. It kicks the door down. It started with a rumor. Whispers in the break room about an SEC probe about irregularities in the firm's accounting. Dad's name kept surfacing, tangled in phrases like creative bookkeeping and conflict of interest. I'd seen the signs, the sudden shifts in fund allocations, the aggressive returns that felt too good to be true, but I'd buried my suspicions, telling myself, Loyalty mattered more than truth. Turns out the truth doesn't care what you bury. The board called an emergency meeting by noon. Dad was out. No golden parachute, no tearful farewell, just a cold press release and a security escort to the elevator. I stood at my desk watching him leave. His shoulders slumped under the weight of his own legacy. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. The rest of me just felt hollow. 2 days later, the new CEO walked in. Clara Hartman, a legend in private equity, a woman with a reputation for gutting corruption and rebuilding from the ashes. She had a presence that crackled like lightning trapped in a suit. Her first move, summoning me to her office. I expected another lecture about loyalty. Instead, she slid a folder across her desk. Inside my code, my emails, my notebooks. Every piece of evidence I'd meticulously gathered over those 3 months of silent rebellion. "Explain this to me," she said, her voice sharp but not unkind. So I did. I walked her through every line of the algorithm, every risk assessment, every late-night calculation. I showed her the timestamps on the code, commits the emails, where I'd flagged discrepancies in Vivian's reports. The $50,000 transfer that had vanished from my account. My hands shook, but my voice didn't. For the first time, I wasn't pleading to be heard, I was demanding to be seen. When I finished, Clara leaned back in her chair. "You built this alone." "Yes." "And you let your sister take credit." I met her gaze. I didn't let her. She took it. Clara smiled, a thin, dangerous thing. "We're restructuring the quantitative division. I need someone who understands the model, who built it. Someone with integrity." The offer came a week later. Head of Quantitative Strategy, $35 million a year. Equity. A seat at the table Dad had once reserved for Vivian. I signed the contract without hesitation. The first team meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. Monday. I arrived early, my heels clicking against the marble floor as I walked into my corner office, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city that used to make my chest ache with longing. I'd barely sat down when the knock came. Vivian stood in the doorway, her designer blazer immaculate, her smile frozen. "Elle," she said too brightly, "Clara wants me to meet the new division head. Have you seen them?" I stood smoothing my sleeves. "You're looking at her." Her smile cracked. "What?" "I'm your new boss, Viv." The color drained from her face. For a moment, she looked like the girl who'd stolen my ice cream at 6 years old and lied about it guilty, but still convinced she could talk her way out of it. "This isn't funny, Eleanor." "It's not a joke," I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Sit." She didn't move. "You can't be serious. Dad would never." "Dad's gone?" I said, sharper than I intended. "And you're not here to talk about him. You're here to explain why your team's last risk assessment ignored the liquidity gaps I flagged. The ones that could have cost us $45 million. Her composure shattered. "You're really going to do this? After everything?" "After everything," I laughed, bitter and raw. "You stole my work, my money, my life. You don't get to play the victim now." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. "You think you're better than me? You'd still be hiding in your cubicle if I hadn't pushed you." "Pushed me?" I rounded the desk, my pulse roaring in my ears. "You didn't push me, Viv. You erased me. You turned my ambition into your trophy. But here's the thing, I'm done letting you define my worth." The room went still. Somewhere in the silence I heard the faint hum of the city below, the distant echo of elevators churning. Vivian's lips trembled, and for a split second I saw it. The fear she'd buried under all that arrogance. The fear of being ordinary. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. I picked up the folder on my desk, the one with her name on it. "From now on, you answer to me. Every report, every decision, every dollar. And if you want to keep your job, you'll start by fixing the mess you made." She stared at the folder like it was a live grenade. "You'd really fire me? Your own sister?" "Family doesn't steal from family," I said quietly. "You taught me that." She left without another word, her heels echoing down the hall. I sank into my chair, my hands trembling, my breath uneven. Part of me wanted to chase her to scream, to demand an apology. But the bigger part, the part that had clawed its way out of the shadows, knew this wasn't about her anymore. Clara appeared in the doorway later that afternoon, a coffee cup in hand. How'd it go? I glanced at the empty hallway. She'll either quit or try to sabotage me. Clara shrugged. Then you'll handle it. That's what leaders do. Leaders. The word felt foreign, dangerous, but as I looked at the skyline, the same view Dad had once claimed as his birthright, I realized something I didn't need his approval, or Vivian's, or anyone's. The truth was I'd always been enough, I just hadn't believed it until now. That night I sat in my apartment, the city lights blurring into streaks of gold. Vivian's last text glowed on my screen. We need to talk. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and started drafting a new proposal. One that would shift $500 million in assets. One that carried my name in bold. Somewhere out there, Dad was probably raging. Vivian was plotting. But me, I was finally free. Because here's the secret no one tells you about power. It doesn't come from titles or money, or even revenge. It comes from looking in the mirror and knowing deep in your bones that you earned your place, that you belong. And once you know that no one can ever take it away, you ever notice how when the dust finally settles, the people who hurt you the most are the ones who show up with the softest voices? That's how Vivian came to me no longer. The golden child, no longer the queen of the boardroom, but my little sister again, standing in the doorway of my office, clutching a folder to her chest like a shield. She waited until everyone else had left for the day. The city outside was wrapped in twilight, the office lights flickering against the glass like distant stars. I was reviewing a report, but I could feel her presence, nervous, uncertain like a storm that didn't know which way to break. "Elle," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do you have a minute?" I didn't look up right away. I wanted her to feel the weight of that silence, the same silence I'd lived in for years. When I finally met her eyes, I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time: fear. Not the fear of losing a job or a title, but the fear of losing something you thought was unbreakable. She stepped inside and closed the door. "I owe you an apology," she said, her words tumbling out in a rush. "I know what I did was wrong, Dad. He pushed me. He said the firm needed a face, someone who could sell the vision. I thought you'd understand. I thought you'd forgive me. We're family. That's what we do, right?" I studied her, remembering all the times I'd let her off the hook, the childhood squabbles, the teenage betrayals, the adult disappointments. I remembered the boardroom, her voice echoing with my words, my numbers, my risk. I remembered the text. "It's just business." I wondered if she'd ever really see me at all. Family doesn't erase each other. "Viv," I said, my voice steady, "you crossed a line. From now on, you answer to me and you earn your place." She bristled, her old arrogance flickering back to life. "You wouldn't be here without me. You never would have stepped up if I hadn't forced your hand." I let her words hang in the air. Maybe she was right. Maybe I'd needed that push, that betrayal, to finally claim my space. But that didn't excuse what she'd done. "Maybe not," I replied quietly. "But I'm not here to be invisible anymore. If you want to stay, you play by my rules." She looked away, her jaw tight. "I don't know if I can do that." I leaned forward, folding my hands on the desk between us. "Then you have a decision to make. I won't cover for you. I won't let you take credit for my work. You want to be part of this team. You show up. You do the work. You respect the people around you, including me." She swallowed, her eyes shining with unshed tears. For a moment I saw the girl she used to be, the one who built blanket forts with me on rainy Saturdays, who whispered secrets in the dark. I wanted to reach out to tell her it would be okay, but I couldn't, not yet. "Dad always said you were the steady one," she whispered. "I never realized how strong you really are." I felt something shift inside me, a release maybe, or just a quiet acceptance. Strength isn't about being loud, Viv. It's about knowing who you are, even when no one else does. She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I'll try. I want to stay. I want to do this right." I believed her. Or maybe I just wanted to. Either way, I knew the boundaries were clear now, etched in the space between us in the choices we made from that moment forward. As she left my office, I felt the weight of years lifting from my shoulders. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for her apology or Dad's approval, or anyone's permission to take up space. I'd drawn my line. I'd claimed my place. And for the first time, I realized that forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing yourself, even when it means letting go of the people you thought you couldn't live without. The city outside was alive with possibility, the night stretching wide and open. I closed my laptop, stood up, and let myself breathe. I was here, I was enough, and I was finally truly seen. You know, people always talk about closure as if it's something you can find like a lost set of keys or an old photograph tucked in a drawer. But sometimes closure isn't about tying up every loose end. Sometimes it's about learning to live with the questions, to let the unfinished parts of your story breathe. I don't know if Vivian and I will ever be close again. There are days when we work side by side, our conversations clipped and careful, the air between us thick with things unsaid. Other days I catch a glimpse of the sister I used to know, a flash of humor, a shared memory, some small act of kindness, and I wonder if forgiveness is possible or even necessary. Maybe some wounds don't heal the way you expect. Maybe they just become part of who you are. As for Dad, I don't know if he'll ever see me as more than the backup plan, the steady one, the safety net. I used to ache for his approval, to chase it like a runner, chasing the finish line, hoping that if I just worked harder, ran faster, did everything right, I'd finally earn his pride. But now every morning when I walk past the corner office that used to be his, I remind myself that my worth isn't measured in bonuses or titles or even family pride. My value isn't something anyone else gets to decide. I've learned that living for someone else's approval is like running on a treadmill that never stops. You exhaust yourself, but you never get anywhere. The moment you step off, though, when you finally choose yourself, your boundaries, your voice, that's when you start to move forward. That's when you start to live. Sometimes I wonder how many of us spend our lives waiting for someone else to see us. How many of us shrink ourselves to fit into someone else's story, someone else's expectations? How many of us let our dreams collect dust because we're afraid of what might happen if we step into the light? I don't have all the answers. I don't know what the future holds for me, for Vivian, for my family, but I do know this. I'm done waiting. I'm done apologizing for wanting more, for being more. I'm done letting anyone else define my story. Maybe that's the real lesson here. Maybe the point isn't to fix everything or to make everyone happy. Maybe the point is to find the courage to draw your own line, to say, this is who I am, this is what I deserve, and I won't settle for less. So let me ask you, where do you draw the line between forgiveness and self-respect? How do you balance loving the people who hurt you with loving yourself, enough to walk away or to stand your ground? Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your dignity? I'd love to hear your story, because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that we're all just trying to find our place in the world. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to stop waiting for permission and start living for yourself.